the average American pays between $3,000 and $4,000 more than they should, and we all call that a tax refund. And what it really is you've just overpaid. Nope, you don't do that in any other area of your life. You don't walk into the grocery store and say, you know what, my bill is 60, but can I pay 100 just in case I miss something? And at the end of the quarter, just let's balance it out. We don't do that with the grocery store. We don't do that with the car dealership. We don't do that with any other thing. Why? So my first thought was, why are we doing this with the IRS?
Hello, welcome everybody back to Annuity Fundamentals. I'm Ryan Anderson, the host of today's show, and today we've got an amazing guest, Mr. Paris Cluff. Now, Paris has been a financial professional for about 24 years. From 2001 to 2017, he was securities licensed with a whole bunch of alphabet soups, all the series, this, that, and the others. And about that point in time, he kind of made a shift. And one of the things about it in this shift is that Paris has got a superpower, and that is being able to explain complex things simply so folks can understand. And he sits down and he helps financial professionals and clients be able to take complex scenarios and situations and put them into easily digestible bites. Your website, pariscluff.com, you go through, you've got an ebook and a bunch of other resources out there for folks there. Sure. But Paris, welcome to the show today. How are you doing?
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I'm really excited. One of your business partners and I grew up and went to high school together. We reconnected recently, and he's like, "Hey, Paris, you ought to come on our show and talk to Ryan about what you're doing." And it was fun to think that we were in the same industry and doing some of the same stuff. And so it was really exciting to not just reconnect as old friends, but also have a little bit of talking shop, too, as well. So that was a lot of fun. So I really am grateful for the opportunity to share my passion about helping people understand how to manage, protect, and grow their money more effectively. And I really appreciate being on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, no problem. Let's go ahead and jump right in here. So one of the things that you go through and you help with, and that is cash flows, budgets, and helping basically clients go through and understand how to build their wealth. Now, if I've got insurance agents out there, and if I'm a Medicare agent or I'm a life agent, and I want to get into the financial services, I'm not securities licensed yet. Mm-hmm. How would I do this? What are the basic fundamental pieces you think that an agent should be able to do in order to work in this space that they should focus on so that they can build towards either getting a securities license or at least be competent in these areas?
Well, when I first started out in the business, as you know, any agency that you work with is going to ask you to do write a list of all your friends, neighbors, and relatives, and you go out and you start calling them and reaching out to them. And one of the things that I came up with, or one of the things that kept recurring as I would call upon my friends, family, neighbors, referrals, and just anybody that I met, as I was prospecting, was this consistent theme of, I want to invest, I want to buy life insurance, I want to do these things, but I just don't have any money. I'm in debt too far. How do I can't justify buying life insurance or, whether it's a whole life or term or buying some other investment, because I'm in debt. I have all these, I don't even have 2 nickels to rub together. And I thought to myself, my main thing was, what if I got to the point where I could help people free up their cash flow, like really understand what's coming in, what's going out, and get them a positive cash flow. For example, I remember going to an area of in Central California one time, and this was not a very affluent area at all. In fact, it's a city called Corcoran. If anybody knows about Corcoran, there's a huge prison there, and it's not a very affluent area. Let's put it that way. And I walked into this home, and they told me the same kind of thing. I don't have 2 nickels to put together. And I said, if I could show you a way to free up several $100s in cash flow, would you take some of that and invest it in your future and invest it in your risk management for your financial life? And after going through a few things with them, looking at their budget, looking at their cash flow, I was able to help them find about $800 a month. And when you find somebody $800 a month, and you can then say, "Hey, would you mind taking 200 or 300 of it and investing it, or buying an insurance product or something like that?" You're a different agent at that point. You're not the guy that's just there trying to sell them something, or trying to figure out what you can do to just hey, I freed up $100, let's throw it in a term policy or something. I
Right.
really help them understand how to manage their money more efficiently and effectively. And in doing that, I feel like it resulted in me making a very nice sale with life insurance in that point. And I did that for several other people. I had another client that had about $500 negative. They said they were 500 negative every month. And I said, well, let's take a look. And we looked through their budget. We looked through their cash flow. I looked at their expenses, their income. We looked at their assets and their liabilities. I just basically did a net worth assessment, cash flow assessment, and a net worth assessment. And I showed them some ways to free up. And we were able to put several $100s a month into a nice insurance policy. And it's just a matter of helping people understand how money flows in their life and how it works, and helping them discipline themselves and their spending. That's helped me a lot. And so now I have a challenge, and my challenge is a 30-day challenge. It's a challenge I take people through. It's my ebook actually is basically this challenge written out in the steps to take. And it's basically sharing with somebody in the next 30 days, how much cash flow can we free up? And I've had people take this course. I have an ebook, and then there's an upgrade for a video course for those that want to learn on a video. But I've had people take the course and free up $700 a month, $600 a month. The average is around $300, and in the first 30 days. And then over time, it gets better and better as we continue if they are willing to engage with me in a coaching process. And as I coach them and help them and teach them, we just go through the process of helping you understand your income and discipline your spending and build a strong savings and emergency fund. And then let's talk about when it's appropriate, and it always is appropriate to talk about risk management. And that's when I get into all the different types of insurance that are out there. And the one, of course, that I offer, and most of those listening are offering, is life insurance. And it's just a great segue into, hey, now that you know how to do this, let's just get you some good risk management, because the one thing you don't want to do is die too soon or live too. The life insurance is that, especially cash value life insurance, you have that, it protects against living too long and against dying too soon. So and then of course I talked about the next steps, which are retirement and then legacy planning, because life insurance is a great tool for estate planning and legacy planning.
All right, so let's go ahead and break this down. Now, when I think of freeing up cash, and as far as debt, and I think that's my go-to, and I think most people's go-to example out there, the most publicly available figure out there is Dave Ramsey, and that is and he doesn't like a lot of the insurance solutions that we recommend, and which is fine. He can have his opinion. I don't agree with him on that, but the guy is good about getting people out of debt. He talks about his debt snowball and his emergency fund and all those things, and he's really well known for that. And if I sat down with somebody and trying to come up with they're $500 in the negative, and you can go through and change it, short of saying, all right, quit eating out, look at your subscriptions that you're paying for on your, make sure you're not double charging for your Amazon Prime. Do you really need to eat out for lunch? Are you paying $6 every morning for a cup of coffee? Those kinds of very go-to basic kinds of things. What other things in addition to that? Where do you find these funds at? If I was an agent, so first of all, tell us where to get the ebook at. If you can give us that link real quick.
Yeah, so you could download the ebook at pariscluff.com/free book. And it's a step-by-step guide. And I would upgrade to the videos if you're somebody who learns better on videos. The ebook's free. The videos are an upgrade. Well worth it. But it's something that it will walk you through the process. If I can just jump right into answering your question, or do you have another comment?
Okay, I was just going to say, just kind of go from there for us, but we'll make sure we include that link down below.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So one of the first things that I realized was, as a financial professional, I was trying my best to learn. I'm a voracious learner. I love to learn. I love to read. One of my clients actually was, he's retired now, and so we had a key person insurance on him with his firm. He was a CPA, and he was one of the top CPAs in Central California, and well respected. He was the leader of several organizations, and he invited me to several different CPA, continuing education classes, courses, other stuff that he was presenting. And so I got to really I got a little bit of a head for CPA lingo, and it was kind of fun to chat with other CPAs, and they're like, "Hey, are you a CPA? You ask really good questions. You really know some stuff." I said, "No, I'm just an insurance agent," and it's like at the time I was a securities licensed rep, but I just really wanted to do the right thing and learn some things. And so one of the things I thought about was, what's one of the biggest sinks that most Americans have, and it's overpaying their taxes every paycheck. The average American pays between $3,000 and $4,000 more than they should, and we all call that a tax refund. And what it really is you've just overpaid. Nope, you don't do that in any other area of your life. You don't walk into the grocery store and say, "You know what, my bill is 60, but can I pay 100 just in case I miss something?" And at the end of the quarter, just let's balance it out. We don't do that with the grocery store. We don't do that with the car dealership. We don't do that with any other thing. Why? So my first thought was, why are we doing this with the IRS? Now, don't get me wrong. The IRS gives me a panic attack and anxiety more than just as much as anybody else, but let's pay our due. Let's pay what's due, and no more and no less. And so I was like, you know what? If we really dial down on the W-2, the Form W-2 that people get from their HR department, and we learn how to take somebody through that, that's the first thing. I actually talked to a CPA who's also a financial coach, and she was telling me about, she even asked me, she's like, "Paris, how do you help people free up their cash flow? How do you help them get more money back in their paycheck or back in their monthly?" And I said, "Well, have you thought about really digging into the Form W-4 and making sure that's filled out correctly, so they're only paying what they should, and their tax refund goes from like $5,000 or $6,000 down, it's only maybe $1,000, but all that extra money is now available to them all year long. You can invest it and earn money. You can pay down your debt and pay off interest." Some people are like, "Well, that's my savings account." Well, that's okay, I guess, if you're not got any discipline. But I'd rather have a savings account that was 5 or 6% than a savings account that was the IRS. So
Yeah.
I would teach my clients, let's go into and figure out how to. The first step is freeing up cash flow with that Form W-4, W-2, that whole section, that whole thing is really helping. And I'm not a CPA, so I would tell people, look, I'm not a CPA. However, let's just read the instructions on the form together. I mean, it's really easy to read those. And I would have people literally in the next paycheck, they got another $100, $200. And then every paycheck, it's like $150, $200 a paycheck. Now, and times two, that's $300 to $400 a month right there. And we haven't even looked at the next phase of the whole of my 30-day challenge. And so that's a huge thing right there. Is just that alone will free up about $300 to $400 a month for everybody that's listening.
That's interesting to me. I used to, this was 30 years ago. It's been 30 years, 25, we'll go say 27 years ago. Man, I'm starting to show my age. But it was really my first management job. I was 27, 28 years old, and I stepped in, I was a manager, I was, young and dumb and just all that in a bag of chips. Uh-huh. And I remember talking to the general manager of this facility that I worked for, and I was one of the mid-level managers. And he said to me, it's something that I didn't really appreciate at the time. He says, if you've got people that are really managing their money, if they're really paying attention to it, they should pay their taxes every year. As far as they should get a bill from the IRS, not a refund. And he says, my goal every year is to write a check to the IRS less than $100. And he says that they don't give me interest on that money, and they can give it back to me whenever they feel like it. And if they don't think that they like my numbers, they can tell me, no, we're going to audit you, and then we'll determine if we're going to give you back your money, versus the other way. And he said that no matter what you do in all areas in life, you want to stay on the right side of the money. Mm-hmm. If you've got the money and you're in possession of it, that's the right side. And you can have the conversations with them. And mind you, the IRS is terrifying. They've got teeth. They can take your house. They can take your assets and all those things. Yep. But let's be honest in our dealings. Let's make sure we're doing the best we can. Let's hire some professionals to assist us with it. But you're right. They don't pay any interest on it. They're very happy to charge huge penalties if you don't get it paid. So having some help in there getting it managed is a big deal. So that is one way that I really like it. Are there any other areas you see people that are kind of, what's your go-to secondary on that?
So let me just add really quickly to that whole process, because a lot of people are scared of the IRS, and rightly so. I will be one of the first to admit I have a number of, I'm right there. I was scared. I've been audited physically come down to the office, sit with a auditor once. I've been mail audited 2 or 3 more times. So I understand the anxiety and fear around the IRS. One of the things, though, that I've realized is that there was only 1 year in my life where I didn't save money, because I got to the point where my CPA was like, Paris, now you need to start paying quarterlies. And so we worked it out where I was paying exactly what I was supposed to pay. But there was 1 year where I got a bill and it was way more than the money I had. And I said, this is the last year this is ever going to happen. So one of the things I recommend with my clients who get a little bit nervous, they're like, well, Paris, if I do too much and I have to pay, then what? Well, that's why you take this money and you put it in a savings account, or you put it into an investment. So you don't blow it. You don't go buy a boat. You don't go buy a bigger screen TV. You don't go buy the next, upgrade to your car and the bigger rims. This is money that you're hopefully coaching and advising your clients to use for their gain and to turn their income into wealth. If they go free up, like I had another client that I showed this whole process to, and the guy went and bought a bigger truck, and I'm like, you did it wrong, bro. Like, so we're not going to be able to control all of our clients. But that was it. The next phase was, in order for you to change your habits, you need to know what they are, and whether you even want to change them. I've always, there's this saying that I say that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so when people come to me and they say, Paris, I'm in debt. Okay, well, clearly you're in debt because of the choices that you've made in the past. So you're getting today what you're getting because you've been doing what you've been doing. So do you like what you're getting? If it's yes, then keep doing it. If you don't like what you're getting because you're in debt and you don't have any money to invest, and you have no money to buy life insurance, and you have no money to put for your future or invest in the future, if you don't have any of these things, then you're obviously doing something on the front of this end of this that's not correct. So let's take a look at your habits. Let's take a look first of all at your spending habits. So I look back, it's a 90-day look back. What was interesting is that as I came up with this, as I was teaching it to my, working through my clients on this, I was watching some money episode on CNBC or CBS Market Watch, one of these news channels, and they were having this coach, financial professional, come in, and they were teaching people how to really set a budget and really get disciplined with their spending. And the thing that they said on the show was, you should look back over the last 90 days to find an average of what your spending has been, so that you know your habits. And I was like, that's what I've been telling people. So it was really cool to have that validation. So what you want to do is you want to look back over 90 days. 90 days is typically a good idea. You can do 40, 4 months, 5 months. We can do whatever you want, but 90 days gives you a little bit of an average opportunity. So let's say that right now is the recording of this video. We're in May. So let's say you do April, March, and February. Those are the last 90 days as of right now. So look at back, what did you spend on, mortgage, rent, car payment? Those things don't change. But I still recommend tracking those. But the really things you want to track are the variable expenses, the discretionary expenses. So how often did you go out to eat at restaurants? How often did you what do you spend at the grocery store? Like, what are your subscriptions? Like you said that, Ryan, right? That was spot on. I literally have met with people and said, hey, you're spending $200 in subscriptions right here on these. What? I had no idea. So there's a lot of subscriptions that a lot of people have that we need to clear up. One of the things that I found is as you go through the last 90 days, people will take a look and they'll say, oh my gosh, I spent how much at Starbucks? Oh my gosh, yeah. I spent how much? And one of the reasons why, really quickly, is I personally have an experience with this. I wanted to buy something I had lost my wedding ring and I wanted to buy a new one. And so being in sales, all life insurance, if you're a commission only life insurance agent, 100% commission, you don't have a side job and this is your side hustle, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like you can just, more calls means more sales, means more closes, means more commissions. And so I realized, okay, I need to spend, I wanted to buy, I picked out a ring. It was $600. I was super excited. And I was like, okay, I got to pay my bills, which was X number of dollars. I got the sales. I knew exactly what I needed to do to pay my bills. And then I was like, in order to buy another $600 worth of a new wedding ring, I set the goal for the next, more sales and more commissions so I could get it. Well, at the end of the month, I hit the goal. I paid the bills, and I was like, I know I made enough money. Commissions hit, and I made enough money to buy this wedding ring, but the money wasn't there. And I was like, where did the money go? So my first question was, let's look at where did I spend the money? the next question was, my wife at the time, well, I'm still married to her. I said, babe, where did the money go? Like, did any unexpected expenses come up? What should we do? And she's like, no, I just spent a couple bucks here and there. I don't know. I didn't overspend on anything major. Well, I looked through and added up all the couple bucks here and there. And, it was 10 here, 20 there, 15 here. It was like a colander in my bank account. Like the holes were just like, you could just tell. I have a fun YouTube video that I did recently. Like, your bank account has holes in it. You got to patch it up. And so that's one of the things that I realized was I had holes, metaphorically, I had holes in my bank account. And so your clients right now, all of your clients, if they're employed, they're probably overspending in their taxes. That's a couple $100 right there. The next thing is, I bet you most of them have holes in their bank accounts, and probably some big ones. And so just go back over that 90-day period with them and say, hey, look, where are the holes in your bank account? Let's just figure this out. The next phase of once you have an average over, like, for example, let's say you spend $150 in restaurants in February, and then you spent $200 in March, and you spent $100 in May or April. So that average is about $125 a month. So that's the starting point for me moving forward. So the next 30 days, so after you've gone back over to the last 30 days, the next 30 days is, let's see what we can do to make sure we keep that average of 125. Or maybe you want to find something in your budget that you can reduce. Maybe you don't need to have so many subscriptions. Maybe you don't need to have so many Starbucks visits. Maybe you don't need to have so many. Maybe you can take a lunch. When people, and then one of the other things is, as a whole, once you kind of do the math with this and do the details of the strategy, like with this, they can get excited about, oh man, I'm going to save money, and you track it. You keep track. I use a fintech app. There's a couple really good ones out there. You can pick whichever one you want, but these budgeting apps are really good because they require, as soon as you spend something or swipe something, if it's synchronized, it notifies your phone, hey, this came through, and then you've got to categorize it. You got to put it in its place, put those dollars in their place, and that brings awareness, and awareness brings change. I have a client that I'm working with right now. We're doing this process. They haven't. We are looking at quotes for insurance and other things right now. But over the last 3 months, I've been working with them on this process, and they were able to pay off almost $5,000 in debt and put about $3,000 into savings. And their budget, and that was because they got disciplined. We figured out where their money was going. And they're like, Paris, this is the most excitement we've ever had about our money and our personal finances, because we feel confident, we feel comfortable, we know where it's going, and we're intentionally spending our money. And when you give people that strength and that confidence to intentionally spend their money, it changes, and you become like their go-to. And then whatever you say after that, as long as it's with integrity, they're going to say, Paris, or whoever you are, we'll buy whatever you have, because we know you're going to give us you have our best interests in mind. And I think that's a huge way to approach somebody and make a good impression and be the advisor of choice.
You said two or three things in there that really struck me. And and I think back to, and they're principles that I have found that true principles are consistent throughout your life, no matter what area of your life they're in. And
Yes.
one of those is know your habits. So one of the things that we sit down and we start like a new Annuity Fundamentals training course. Then week one, I sit down with the agents and I ask them, what is your sales cycle? When you go into your client for the first time, week one, you've got your gateway solution, whether that's life insurance or that's Medicare, annuities, doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. What is the sales cycle? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. What do you say? When do you say it? How do you know when it's time to move on to the next one? Mm-hmm. Most agents, and I'm talking 90% or plus, will come in and say, oh, I just go in and talk to them, and when it feels right, we move on. They don't have a process. And so I tell them, you do have a process. You just have never formalized it. Write it down, pen to paper. What are the bullet points? And then that way, if we can now have a starting point to start refining it. And the other thing about that is knowing what the problem is. You said something in there when you sit down with folks and they've got holes in their account, a sieve. It made me think about my daughter, freshman year at college. It might have been sophomore. No, it was a freshman year. She got married young, and she and her husband got married, and did all of the poor freshman college student things here. And they called me about 2 months after they got married, and it's like, all right, Dad, we need help with our rent. We don't have any money this month. long story short, I sat down with her and I was like, well, let's go ahead and let's break down. What's the problem? And she's like, the problem is we don't have enough money for rent. I was like, no. That's a symptom of the problem. The problem is you don't have a job. And she and she told me, Dad, when we got married, we decided that my husband is going to work full time and I'm going to be a full time student. And I was like, that's great. How's it working for you? Been doing it for 2 months.
You can't pay the rent.
Silence on the other end.
Yeah.
And I said, we worked through it, but identifying what the actual problem is. And a lot of folks, the problem is not, I don't make enough money. The problem is I spend way more than I should on stuff that I can't even tell you what it is. I was with an agent here earlier the week before last, and I sat down with him and I said, all right, so this is how much money you've made. And we've gone over your and you've told me what your monthly bills are. There's a $5,000-$6,000 a month discrepancy there. It was a significant amount. And it's like, what's this other stuff on? And they're like, I can't tell you. I don't know. Taxes? And we jumped into it, and it was just the amount of that $10 here, $20 there, $100 here,
Right.
just not thinking about it, and it adds up in a hurry.
Yeah.
And but knowing that and knowing the habits, that is a huge, huge deal. So we're almost out of time here, so I want to kind of just wrap up with another question for you. So if an agent wants to go through and do this, would you recommend that they go through this process themselves first so they can learn it and talk about it from their own point of view? How would you recommend that an agent take this and implement it with their clients?
I think you're always going to have a much better, there's something that I call authority, and then there's moral authority. Moral authority is, do you live the things that you're teaching? Are you a life insurance agent that has millions of dollars of coverage? Are you an investment advisor that has a strong, portfolio? Are you just selling stuff because you want to make money, or are you buying what you're selling yourself? And if I went through the process, so my whole wedding ring story is in the ebook. And after I realized that I, as an agent, I, as a financial professional, I was nickel and diming myself, I realized that I need to fix my own house before I can start fixing other people's homes, so to speak. And I realized that once I went through the process myself and I sat down with other people, I could be bold with them. I could say, look, I got rid of my whatever I was buying and spending money on that was frivolous. You can too. And we can do this together. And I feel like there's more moral authority and power in doing that. And you can really be bold with your clients, because some of them need it. Some of them need strong coaches. They don't need mealy mouse, people telling them, hey, it's gonna be okay. You can buy. We're broke as a nation. Generally speaking, the statistics are horrible. 25 years ago when I started this business, it was like 5 out of 100 people who make it to 65 will have any degree of financial independence. And I don't think that number's changed, but by maybe 1 or 2% in all those years. And so it's like, one, I feel like I didn't do my job as well as I should have. And then I'm also like, wait, we need to get people really understanding how to help people change their money behaviors, their habits, behaviors, and beliefs. Once you help them change their habits, behaviors, and beliefs, they'll buy the things that they need. They'll buy the mutual funds, the stocks. They'll buy the life insurance. Because they'll recognize why they need it, and they'll be disciplined in their spending so they can actually afford it and feel comfortable with it. And I feel like that's just the way to go.
Well, thank you so very much. Again, what is your website again?
It's pariscluff.com. And I'm on all the social medias under Paris Cluff. You can find me anywhere and follow me anytime. I have a YouTube channel as well where I go into education and literacy. In 2015, I became a certified financial educator, so I could really, have that as a background because I just love educating. I appreciate what you said, Ryan. I do have one of the gifts that so many people have told me over the years is, Paris, I understand. I finally understand how these money concepts relate and how they work together, because you have just a way of explaining it that's more simple and easy. And I think that's something that we as advisors need to remember, is that we know we've been trained for hours and hours and hours. We go through all the CEUs and all the licensing, and we have all these fancy, terminology, and the average everyday ordinary family doesn't know the fancy stuff. So keep it simple, keep it real, and people will learn to respect you and appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you so very much. And I appreciate everybody else who logged in and has joined us on this particular episode. This episode is brought to us by leadshop.org. If you're looking to have seminars, if you're looking to have events, need help to fill the room for any of these things, leadshop.org is the only company that we use. They do amazing work. Go ahead and check them out. And as always, please like and subscribe below, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much, Paris. Enjoy having you on the show.
Thank you.